For years, OLED has been called the king of TVs. Perfect blacks, infinite contrast, colors so rich they look painted on glass. But walk into your living room on a sunny afternoon, turn on that expensive OLED, and suddenly it looks washed out, dim, and covered in reflections. Meanwhile, the Mini LED TV next to it is blazing bright, colors popping, HDR highlights punching through the sunlight like nothing's even there. The truth nobody in the industry wants to admit is this. In bright rooms, the kind of rooms most people actually have, Mini LED isn't just competing with OLED anymore. It's killing it. Before we break down exactly why Mini LED has become the smarter choice for real-world viewing and which models dominate in 2026, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Comment right now and tell me, are you using OLED or Mini LED at home? And does your TV struggle when the sun hits the screen? Let me know, because today we're exposing why OLED's biggest weakness is the one thing most buyers never test in the store, and why Mini LED is winning the war for bright room supremacy. Let's start with the reality most people face. The average living room isn't a home theater. It's not a dark cave with blackout curtains and controlled lighting. It's a room with windows, lamps, natural sunlight streaming in during the day, and overhead lights at night. That's where most people watch TV. Sports during the afternoon, news in the morning, streaming shows in the evening with the lights on. And in those conditions, OLED's strengths disappear and its weaknesses become glaringly obvious. Mini LED, on the other hand, was built for this exact scenario. It thrives in brightness, it fights glare, it maintains contrast even when the room is flooded with light. And that's why, in 2026, Mini LED is outselling OLED in the premium TV market and gaining ground fast. The tech behind the battle? To truly grasp why this shift is happening and why it matters, you need to understand how these two technologies actually work under the hood. OLED stands for Organic Light Emitting Diode, and it represents a fundamentally different approach to creating images. Unlike traditional TVs that require a backlight, OLED is self-emissive. Each individual pixel generates its own light. When a pixel needs to display black, it simply turns off completely. No backlight bleeding through, no gray approximation of black, just pure, absolute darkness. This gives OLED an infinite contrast ratio, because you're comparing something that's producing light against something that's producing literally zero light. In a pitch-black room watching a movie with deep shadows, dimly lit scenes, and subtle gradations in darkness, OLED is absolutely breathtaking. The picture has a three-dimensional quality to it. Details emerge from shadows naturally. Colors look accurate and film like rather than artificially boosted. Motion is instantaneous because pixels respond in microseconds. It's everything a serious movie enthusiast or home theater purist dreams of having. But here's the critical limitation that OLED manufacturers don't advertise prominently. OLED panels have a hard ceiling on how bright they can get, and that ceiling is significantly lower than what competing technologies can achieve. For most of OLED's history, panels maxed out around 700 to 1,000 nits of peak brightness. The newer generation of OLEDs from 2024 and 2025 push that to around 1,200 to 1,500 nits in small highlights. And in 2026, the latest panels from LG Display are claiming they can hit 4,500 nits in very specific testing conditions. That sounds impressive on paper, and it is a meaningful improvement. Why bright rooms expose OLED's fatal flaw? Now let's get into the heart of why bright rooms completely change this technology battle, and why Mini LED dominates in real-world home environments. In a perfectly dark room with zero ambient light, OLED wins. No argument. The perfect blacks, the infinite contrast, the pixel-level precision, it's unmatched and objectively superior to Mini LED in that specific scenario. But the moment you introduce any meaningful amount of ambient light, the entire equation flips. And here's the thing that shocks people when they actually test this. It doesn't take much light to ruin OLED's advantage. Even a moderately lit room with lamps on or daylight coming through closed curtains is enough to wash out OLED's contrast and make the picture look flat. Here's why this happens from a physics perspective. When light from your room hits the TV screen, it reflects back toward your eyes. On an OLED displaying black, those pixels are turned off and producing zero light. But your room's ambient light is bouncing off the screen surface and filling in those black areas with gray. The brighter your room, the more light reflects, and the grayer the blacks become. This destroys OLED's infinite contrast advantage. Those perfect blacks that looked incredible in the dark now look muddy and washed out. And because OLED can't get very bright to compensate, the entire image loses its punch. Colors look desaturated. HDR highlights that should pop off the screen look dim and underwhelming. Dark scenes that should have depth and dimension become flat and hard to see clearly. Mini LED doesn't have this problem because it fights fire with fire. Yes, ambient light is reflecting off the Mini LED screen just like it does on OLED. But Mini LED compensates by producing so much brightness that it overpowers the reflections. Imagine you're trying to see a flashlight beam in broad daylight versus at night. At night, the flashlight looks bright and clear. During the day, you can barely see it because the sun is so much brighter. That's what's happening with OLED in a bright room. It's the flashlight during the day, and it just can't compete. Mini LED is like turning on stadium floodlights. The ambient light is still there, but the screen is so bright that it doesn't matter. The image stays vibrant, colors stay saturated, and HDR content maintains its impact. And then there's the glare issue, which is even more frustrating for OLED owners. Most OLED TVs use glossy screens because it helps with color vibrancy and contrast in controlled lighting. But glossy screens are terrible with reflections. Every window becomes a mirror. Every lamp creates a bright spot on the screen. You see reflections of people walking around, reflections of furniture, even your own reflection staring back at you. It's genuinely distracting and makes content hard to watch. Premium Mini LED TVs have started using advanced anti-glare coatings and sometimes even matte finishes that diffuse reflections and scatter light. The result is a screen that you can actually see clearly even with lights on or windows open. Samsung's Neo LED line and TCL's high-end models use these coatings to great effect. Some OLED manufacturers are catching on. Samsung's S95F uses a matte OLED screen that helps with reflections, but it's still not as effective as the best Mini LED anti-glare solutions. And the matte coating slightly softens the image sharpness. Real-world examples that prove the point. Let me paint you some real-world scenarios that make this difference crystal clear. Imagine it's Sunday afternoon and you're watching a football game or cricket match. The game starts at noon. Your living room has large windows because you like natural light. The sun is streaming in, filling the room with brightness. You turn on your old TV and immediately notice the picture looks dim and washed out. The green of the field looks dull. The players' jerseys lack vibrancy. You can barely see the score and play clock because they're too dim. Reflections from the windows are creating bright spots on the screen that obscure parts of the action. You get up, close the curtains, and now the room is dark and depressing in the middle of a beautiful day. The TV looks better, but you're sitting in artificial darkness. That's the old experience in a bright room. Now imagine the same scenario with a Mini LED TV. The sun is streaming in, the room is bright and cheerful. You turn on the TV and the picture is stunning. The grass looks vibrant green. The uniforms are bold and saturated. Every detail is razor sharp and easy to see. HDR makes the highlights pop. The scoreboard is perfectly visible. The anti-glare coating diffuses the window reflections so they're barely noticeable. You're watching the game in comfort with natural light filling your space. And the TV is performing exactly as it should. That's the Mini LED advantage. It adapts to your life instead of forcing you to adapt to it. Or consider morning news. You're getting ready for work. Lights are on throughout the house. You turn on the news while you're making breakfast and getting dressed. With OLED, the picture looks washed out under your bright kitchen and living room lights. The lower thirds with news tickers are dim and hard to read. You find yourself leaning closer or squinting to see information clearly. With Mini LED, the picture is bright and clear from across the room. You can glance at the TV while moving around and instantly see what's happening. The brightness makes the content accessible and easy to consume even in a fully lit space. These aren't edge cases. These are how normal people watch TV in normal homes. And this is where Mini LED absolutely dominates OLED. The market data tells the truth. If you think this is just subjective opinion or personal preference, look at what's actually happening in the market. Because the numbers don't lie. In the second quarter of 2024, Mini LED TV shipments overtook OLED in the premium television segment for the first time in history. Mini LED captured 54% of premium market share compared to OLED's 46%. That might sound like a close race, but look at the growth rates. Mini LED shipments grew 68% year over year. OLED grew too at 21%, which is respectable. But Mini LED is growing more than 3 times faster. That's not a fluke. That's a market shift driven by consumer preference and real-world performance. And the trend is accelerating in 2026. Chinese brands like TCL and Hisense are flooding the market with Mini LED TVs that offer flagship-level brightness and thousands of dimming zones at prices that were unthinkable just 2 years ago. A 65-inch TCL QM8K with over 1,000 dimming zones and peak brightness exceeding 3,000 nits can be found for $800 during sales. That's a third of what a comparable OLED costs. Even if you control for price and compare premium Mini LED to premium OLED at similar price points, consumers are choosing Mini LED in greater numbers. Why? Because it performs better in their actual homes. It handles bright rooms. It has no burn-in risk, which is still a legitimate concern for OLED if you watch news channels with static logos or play video games with fixed HUD elements. And it delivers brightness and HDR impact that OLED simply cannot match. The value proposition is undeniable. You're getting more brightness, more versatility, more durability, and in many cases more screen size for your money with Mini LED. A 75-inch Mini LED from Hisense or TCL costs less than a 65-inch OLED from LG. For families who want a big screen experience without spending $3,000 or $4,000, Mini LED is the obvious choice. And it's not just budget buyers making this switch. Premium buyers who can afford any TV they want are also choosing Mini LED. Because even with unlimited budget, if your room has windows or you watch TV during the day, Mini LED is objectively the better performing technology. OLED fights back, but is it enough? To be completely fair and balanced, OLED technology is not standing still. Manufacturers know they have a bright room problem, and they're working hard to address it. The 2026 generation of OLED panels from LG Display represents a significant leap forward in brightness capabilities. These new panels are claiming peak brightness of up to 4,500 nits in small highlights, which is getting much closer to Mini LED territory. That's a huge improvement over the 1,200 to 1,500 nits we were seeing just 2 years ago. And in practice, these brighter OLEDs do perform noticeably better in mixed lighting than older generations. You can watch TV in a moderately lit room without feeling like the picture is completely washed out. Samsung has taken a different approach with their S95 FQD OLED. They've applied a matte coating to the OLED panel that diffuses reflections and reduces glare. This makes a real difference in bright room viewing. The reflections that would normally mirror every window and lamp are scattered and much less distracting. Combined with quantum dot color technology that makes colors more vibrant and saturated, the S95F is one of the best attempts at making OLED work in bright rooms. But here's the reality. Even with all these improvements, OLED still can't match Mini LED's raw brightness output. That 4,500 nit spec is peak brightness in a tiny portion of the screen under test conditions. Real-world sustained brightness across larger portions of the screen is still well below what Mini LED achieves. And the matte coating on the S95F, while helpful for reflections, slightly softens image sharpness and reduces the perceived depth that glossy OLED is famous for. OLED is also still more expensive across the board. Even with improvements, you're paying a significant premium for technology that excels in one specific use case: dark room viewing. The cheapest 65-inch OLED you can find is around $1,200 to $1,500 for an entry-level model like the LG B5. Meanwhile, you can get a 65-inch Mini LED with better brightness, more dimming zones, and comparable or superior bright room performance for $800 or less. The mid-range OLED models like the LG C5 run $1,800 to $2,200, while Mini LED alternatives with better specs cost $1,000 to $1,400. The price gap narrows at the very high end, but even there, you're still paying more for OLED. And if your primary viewing environment is a bright room, you're paying more for inferior performance in the conditions that matter most to you. That's a tough sell, and the market is reflecting that reality. Which TVs should you actually buy in 2026? So let's get practical. If Mini LED is winning the bright room battle and offering better value, which specific models should you actually consider buying? Let's break this down by budget and use case. For budget-conscious buyers who want the best bang for their buck, the TCL QM8K is the runaway champion of 2026. This TV punches so far above its weight class, it's almost unfair. You're getting over 1,000 local dimming zones, peak brightness exceeding 3,000 nits, quantum dot color for vivid saturation, 144Hz refresh rate for smooth gaming and sports, and full HDMI 2.1 support for next-gen consoles. A 65-inch model regularly goes on sale for $700 to $800. A 75-inch can be found for under $1,200. That's flagship performance at mid-range pricing, and for bright room viewing, it competes with TVs costing 2 or 3 times as much. The Hisense U8QG is in the same performance tier as the TCL and sometimes even cheaper. Hisense has been aggressively improving their quality control and processing, and the U8QG delivers stunning brightness, deep blacks thanks to Mini LED, excellent motion handling, and vibrant colors. Some reviewers actually prefer the Hisense's out-of-box color calibration over the TCL. The interface is Google TV, which is clean and responsive. And like the TCL, it offers incredible value. A 75-inch U8QG for under $1,000 gives you a massive, bright, high-performance screen that makes OLED look overpriced and dim by comparison in bright rooms. For buyers who want the absolute best and don't mind paying for it, the Sony Bravia 9 is the Mini LED king. Sony doesn't compete on price. They compete on picture quality. And the Bravia 9 delivers the most refined, natural, and accurate image you can get from a Mini LED TV. Sony's processing is legendary. Their motion handling makes fast sports and action look smooth and clear without the soap opera effect. Their upscaling makes even 1080p content look sharp on a 4K screen. Their color science produces images that look natural and film-like rather than artificially boosted. The Bravia 9 combines all of this with Mini LED's brightness and local dimming, creating a TV that performs brilliantly in any lighting condition. It's expensive, usually $2,500 to $3,500 for a 65-inch model, but if you want the best possible Mini LED experience and you have the budget, it's worth every penny. And then there's the wildcard option for people who really want OLED but need it to work in brighter rooms. The Samsung S95 FQD OLED with its matte screen coating is the best compromise solution. It gives you OLED's perfect blacks and infinite contrast while reducing reflections and improving visibility in ambient light. It's still not as bright as Mini LED and still struggles more in very bright rooms, but it's the best OLED can currently offer for mixed lighting environments. It's priced around $2,000 to $2,500 for a 65-inch, putting it in the same range as premium Mini LED options. If you absolutely must have OLED's picture quality and you're willing to accept some bright room compromises, the S95F is the one to get. But for most buyers in most homes, a Mini LED will serve them better. The future belongs to Mini LED. Looking forward, the trajectory is clear. Mini LED technology is still improving rapidly. We're seeing more dimming zones, better algorithms, improved anti-glare coatings, and falling prices. The technology is maturing faster than OLED ever did, And because it doesn't have the same fundamental brightness limitations or burn-in risks, it has more room to grow and dominate. OLED will always have its place. It's the best technology for dedicated home theaters with controlled lighting. It's the choice for videophiles who watch primarily in the dark and want absolute picture perfection. But for everyone else, for the vast majority of TV buyers who watch in living rooms with windows and lights, Mini LED is the smarter, more practical, better performing option. And the market is recognizing this reality with every passing quarter. So, if this video completely changed the way you think about old versus Mini LED and helped you understand why bright rooms change everything, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment right now telling me whether you're Team Old or Team Mini LED, and whether your room has a lot of natural light. Let's start a conversation, because I want to know what matters most to you in a TV. And remember, the best TV isn't the one with the fanciest technology or the highest price tag. It's the one that performs best in your actual room, with your actual lighting, watching your actual content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.